Challenge accepted.
What follows is a collection of the last 10 strategy videos I uploaded in the past 2 weeks. I hope you enjoy. Let's talk about bridge jumps in jungle. And most runners will tell you that they perform the jumps by feel. In other words, for most of us it's just muscle memory. But there is a visual reference that I've found. First, this crack in the middle of this block, right here. And we've actually got a few pixels leeway beyond this point, but the crack works as a good visual cue. If we jump after the crack, we won't make the jump. The bridge will explode before we can land on it to perform our second jump. The second is this line right here. So long as we jump after this line, we're safe. To reiterate, this is actually a pretty easy jump to learn because we have so much space to work with. One more thing to note is that this is a double jump. We jump once here and once on the bridge itself. Here's a really fancy looking strat that's actually not that difficult to do. And you might think with 2 trolls firing at us from 2 different levels means we have to duck and waste time. But take a look at the 2 bullets they just fired. Yep, you can actually jump through them. And if you keep firing down and to the right, you should be able to kill that second troll before he gets a second shot off. Now, our visual cue is either the 4 lines I'm standing on right now, or it's the edge of that block with the paths on either side above my head. This is where we need to be when we start the jump. The hangar actually has a very easy boss. You just run up and shoot the eyeballs above the door. It's the section just before the boss that runners find annoying. Unfortunately, a lot of good runs have died here. But there are a few visual references we can use to make life a little easier. For example, we can use the second doorway as a visual reference for where to duck. We can then use these lines here as a reference for when to jump over the bullet that's about to smack me in the face. Like so. I'd recommend using these next 4 lines you land on as a reference for when to jump onto the ledge to set up the next jump. We can use the first sets of lines on this ledge as a guide to jump over the bullet that's just been fired at us. After clearing the next troll, we can run up to the very next set of lines and jump once more to clear the final troll. Yeah, you might want to watch this bit through a few more times. Yeah, and whatever you do, do not stop firing. The ideal situation in a speedrun is one in which we don't have to slow down at all. This can sometimes lead to some rather convoluted strategies. We're going to start by destroying the carrier directly below us so that we don't accidentally pick up the laser. We'll do this by firing down and to the left in the middle of the following jump. It's like that. Now this is where the strategies diverge depending on when you want to pick up the rapid fire, which is in the carrier right in front of us. The first method is to jump off this ledge, firing down and to the right. Now you'll need to jump again almost immediately to avoid getting shot by the turret. And then of course that last jump to make the final gap. The second method is to shoot once just before dropping off the ledge. This is to deal extra damage to the turret. We can use this visual reference right here to determine when to jump to avoid getting shot. Right below where I'm standing, that crack. After which we of course make the final jump. Now you might be wondering, how do we pick up the rapid fire in this second method? Quite simply, when we make this last jump, we fire twice. Put it all together and it looks something like this. Finally, I'd like to point out that this last jump is difficult and you will die fairly often. If you want a safer strat, simply drop down, tap left, and then carry on running. If you don't tap left, well, there isn't really time to jump again. The 6 jump strats at the beginning of Snowfield will take a fair bit of grinding to get used to, but it does save a lot of time when done correctly. Now our visual reference is that crack right below my cursor. This is a tight jump. It's not frame perfect, but you'll have to be careful. The idea is to keep jumping forward while we fire down and to the right until we make it all the way to this ledge here. Now, jumping and button mashing at the same time can be difficult, and so it should be noted that you don't actually have to fire on the 3rd and 6th jumps. That's my 3rd jump and my 6th jump. There are 3 barriers in Contra, only 2 of which we use in speedrunning, and one of them is on the Waterfall stage. But suppose we miss the barrier. Is the run over? Believe it or not, you can actually get through the rest of the stage without the barrier. You'll lose a bit of time, but at least you'll start base 2 with rapid fire and spread fire. Now this is going to be a long one, so strap yourselves in. Now you'll want to keep moving. This is how you'll stay ahead of turrets and trolls. There's only really 2 places you might need to slow down. Now first, we need to get across this flaming bridge by jumping straight up and then to the right. Keep running and jump once more and you should make it onto the next ledge. You'll want to jump up and then to the left twice to make it across the gap. Then jump onto the moving platform and immediately straight up. Jump up onto the next ledge and then to the right to land on the next moving platform, and then jump off the platform to the right. Now you may have to pause here for a couple frames. Sometimes there's a projectile flying towards us from the bottom left hand corner. If not, just keep on moving. Now at this point we want to jump up, up, left, right, and pause. Now we pause here for a couple frames because of those 3 bombs. Let me show you what happens if we don't pause. Now at this point we're going to jump to the left, to the left, to the right, pause again, and we're going to pause because of those 3 projectiles. We're going to wait until they drop just below that top ledge. Like that. We're going to jump up to this ledge and button mash as hard as you can to kill that turret. Now we're going to immediately jump to the left across that gap and jump left again, and we should, if we've got our timing right, we should be able to jump right onto the platform. So again, left, left, and right, hit the platform, right again. That's the strategy. Now this is by no means an easy strategy. It's certainly not a strategy that top runners would use. We would always go for the barrier. But it's a good one to have in your back pocket as a backup plan just in case things go wrong. It's a difficult strat, it really is, and it will take a lot of grinding. But with enough practice, you'll get it pretty consistent. The hanger is notorious for its claws. Now here's a neat strategy that might look really difficult, but it's actually not that bad once you get the timing down. Now we're going to run straight onto this trolley and immediately jump off the platform. And as soon as we reach the end of the platform, we're going to jump again to avoid the gunfire of that trolley. Now we'll need to start shooting as soon as we jump so that we can kill that troll before he kills us. Now we're going to jump when we reach the edge of the platform I'm currently on. And if we do this correctly, we should land on top of the spike wall. All we do is jump one more time before we fall between the 2 walls, and we should be okay. Now this is an advanced strategy, but definitely still worth learning. Snowfield is probably the most likely stage you'll die on during a run because of the stupid amount of trolls you'll face. Unfortunately, it also happens to be one of the few stages where one can still achieve a decent time even if you die, so long as it's in the first half. See, there is a spread fire and rapid fire close together that you can pick up. Now, as with most strats I've explained in this series, you'll want to keep moving and shooting. So, we'll jump across the first gap and the second, And just before we jump across the third, we will fire down, and then keep firing forwards as we jump across the final gap. Now this particular strategy may look awkward, but it's really not that bad, and it's essential even for sub 11 minute runners. The ultimate goal of any given stage is to get through without having to slow down at all. Believe it or not, jumping actually loses you a couple frames. Now one jump might not matter, but wasting jumps on every stage can quickly add up to a decent amount of time loss. Thus, we'd sometimes choose one strat over another just because it's less jumps. There are two ways to make it through the section I just showed you, and the first is to jump the gap here. But I want you to count the amounts of jumps I'm doing to avoid all the trolls and projectiles. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now the second is to drop down. Now you'll want to shoot down while you drop because trolls have a bad habit of showing up here. The visual cue for our first jump is the 4 lines I'm currently standing on. Now we're going to keep shooting as we make our second jump across this gap here, and then we just run off the edge. Now that's 2 jumps, one more than the first method, which again is only a couple lost frames. But remember, the less jumps we make throughout the run, the more time we can ultimately save. And by the way, don't forget to double back here, or pause, so as not to jump into the flame. Now top runners will get through those flames without picking up the barrier. Now first, I'll show you the fastest way to grab the barrier on the way through. Then I'll show you a neat trick to get past those flames without said barrier. Now we'll need to start jumping through this first flame as soon as it starts retracting. We'll jump immediately again and shoot to the right to kill that troll who's trying to take us out. Now at this point, when we're directly above the flame, we need to shoot down and to the left to destroy that box. We simply drop down, grab the barrier, and make our way through the rest of the stage. The barrier should last until just before the final flame on the stage, so be careful. Now the second strategy, we're going to jump through these flames, kill the troll, clear the ceiling fan, but this time we're going to skip the barrier. And instead, at this point where I'm standing right here, we're going to make an important jump. In the middle of the jump, when the bottom flame is fully extended, we're going to quickly pause and unpause the game. And all this does is gives us more time to drop through the 2 flames. Now there's just a matter of getting through the rest of the stage with no barrier, but that's another video. Oh, and the top runners, they don't even pause. Now one important note is that these flames are on a global timer. This is not a strategy that I would recommend unless you've got the rest of the stage before these flames figured out. If when you jump the wrong flame berms, like we just saw, it's probably because you got there too late. The TLDR of this one is, if you're a beginner, I'd recommend just grabbing the barrier. I mean, you're only losing about 4 seconds anyway. I'd like to thank everyone who has been following along. If you have any suggestions for strategies or sections you'd like me to cover in the future, please do let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll do my best to answer them. If you'd like to watch me speedrun, click the link in the description. I am on Twitch. Thank you for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.